All right. Now let's get into the news this weekend. Skip Bayless. It was reported from the New York Post that he is leaving Undisputed. Um, it's really unfortunate what has happened, with Skip Bayless. Um, what are my thoughts about the whole situation? Look, the bottom line was obviously it's because of ratings. It's because of business. And when you look at the ratings since Shannon Sharp's departure from Undisputed, the ratings have went down. With the new format that Undisputed has, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. I don't know what's gonna happen with Skip Bayless. I do think he should go into a different transition as far as like with YouTube. I mean, because at this point, ESPN, I don't see him going on First Take. Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp, they're doing their thing on First Take, and they don't need Skip Bayless. As for FS1, look, after this football season, Colin Cowherd, his contract is up, so they can't lose a guy like Colin Cowherd. And I just think for me personally with Skip Bayless, and I'll say it and I'll say it again, man. Yes, he opened the door for a lot of opportunities for Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith. But at the same time, it doesn't take away who Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith are and what they've accomplished. And look, Skip Bayless, I knew that he and Shannon were over on Undisputed. Remember when the Tom Brady situation, when Skip Bayless accused Shannon Sharp of being jealous. Then the Monday Night Football game between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals, with the situation with Damar Hamlin, and then later Skip Bayless's tweet got so bad for Shannon Sharp, he didn't even show up to Undisputed the next day. And then the day after that, while he's doing his monologue, Skip interrupts him. So I knew that the writing was on the wall for both of them to part ways. I don't wish bad. I don't wish ill will for Skip Bayless. He's definitely given us a lot of great entertainment as far as with First Take, Cold Pizza, as far as with Undisputed. He's opened the doors for a lot of people in the sports media business. But as far as his chance, and again, still under contract, in 2021, they paid him 4 years for what, 32 million?
Yeah.
And look, Skip Bayless, there's been a lot of controversies around him, guys. We all know when he used to cover the Dallas Cowboys and what he said about Troy Aikman.
Yes.
Let's not forget about the situation years ago with Dak Prescott and other things regarding Skip Bayless. So, like I said, I don't wish bad. I don't wish ill will on Skip Bayless. I think him thinking that he can move on with Shannon Sharp has proven to be a huge mistake, because if you see what Shannon Sharp is doing on Nightcap, he's got his new role on ESPN, signed that big multi-year deal. So Shannon Sharp, and of course we can't ignore Club Shay Shay. So Shannon Sharp has incredible opportunities. And of course, for Stephen A. Smith, not just with First Take, but he also has his own podcast. He also has a lot of other things as well. What are your thoughts about the reports about Skip Bayless leaving?
I'll go first on this one. He did it to himself. I mean, I really hate to say it, but I mean, it's the truth. He did it to himself. Like, Undisputed. I mean, let's be real. When it was Shannon and Skip, they were killing First Take. I mean, a lot of it was, Shannon Sharp bringing that charisma, being that perfect kind of like contrast to Skip Bayless, But I mean, it worked. and they were killing First Take, killing them. I mean, there were times like, let me tell you, I followed the Undisputed, the YouTube channel. I followed it. I would be trying to get to them to watch the highlights for their show way more than I was at First Take at one point, because I felt like Skip and Shannon really could have been something, but Skip, he did it to himself. And I completely agree with you, PSP, when you're talking about that Tom Brady episode. That was it. I mean, you're sitting there trying to accuse this man of being jealous of Tom Brady when Shannon Sharp is a literal Hall of Famer and, in my opinion, a top 5 tight end of all time, and you accusing this man of being jealous of Tom Brady. Like, Skip, I guess you're a Tom Brady fan, but don't throw your co-host under the bus like that just because he's giving you how he feels about a situation, and instead of you listen to it, taking it in and respecting his opinion, you calling this man jealous. I'd have left your ass too. I mean, let's keep it a buck. I'd have left him too. Like, you're not gonna sit here and disrespect me on national TV like that. I'm giving you my opinion, and you would want me to respect you when you give your opinion. I mean, it was just, when that segment happened, the writing was completely on the wall, and you knew what was coming. But Skip did it to himself. Now, has he given? I mean, now I'm not going to sit here and say Skip Bayless hasn't made contributions to the game as far as, like, in a way, kind of help revolutionize what we see now as far as, like, sports talk shows and sports debate shows and the podcast, because all this kind of had to start from somewhere. And Cole Pizza with him and Woody Page, that kind of jump started all this. The First Takes and the Undisputed, and hell, us doing podcasts nowadays and stuff like this, making this like a big thing was going on, was making it so popular. I feel like Skip Bayless and Woody Page, Cole Pizza started all this and kind of jump started what we see today. Having the Colin Cowherds of the world, having Speak for Yourself and all these shows that are out here. So Skip Bayless has definitely made some contributions to the game. A lot of contributions to the game, whether it be through takes that you have to think about, like, you know what, he makes sense, and then takes like, ultimately it all became like, that's just Skip Bayless being Skip Bayless. I mean, we remember him from, like, I don't know, his just constant having to put some type of disclaimer on any type of accolade or accomplishment LeBron James gets because he's such the Michael Jordan fan. Or his crazy, ridiculous bromance obsession with Tim Tebow when he was playing with the Denver Broncos. I mean, the dude literally said Johnny Manziel was going to be bigger in Cleveland than LeBron James. I laughed out loud when he said that. I'm like, ain't no way. But you got to get attention to your product somehow. And Skip Bayless was able to do that for a long, long time. So you got to give shout out to the man. You got to give the man his respects, because he's definitely made contributions to what we do nowadays. A lot of his takes were crazy and insane. We're not going to deny it, but we got to get a man his due. But ultimately, Undisputed falling on his face, he did it. He did it to himself. So I'm hoping he can bounce. I'm hoping he can bounce back. I'm hoping he can find another avenue to keep his career going as long as he wants, because everybody deserves to keep working in this. Everybody deserves to make a living in this. But he's got to find another. He's got to find another outlet. So ultimately, at the end of the day, he did it to himself.
Before I let you go, champ, again, I want to give credit. It's from Ryan Glass-Steagall of the New York Post. He reported that Bayless will depart FS1 and Undisputed later this summer after 8 years with the network. The move comes 1 year after FS1 aligned with Bayless and allowed Shannon Sharp to become a free agent. In the following months, FS1 watched Bayless falter in his attempt at revamping Undisputed, while Sharp's media career has flourished through his digital platform and contributions to First Take. It's obviously because of the ratings, champ. With Undisputed, the ratings went substantially down when Shannon Sharp departed. I want to hear what you have to say. And by any chance, did you hear what Marcellus Wiley had to say?
I have not heard that yet.
I have not heard that, but I would love to hear it if you got a little bit of insight before I go.
No, I'll send it to you in a little bit. But what's your thoughts about the whole thing?
In the great words of Dr. Dre, dedicated to all of those with big egos, because that's why that happened. How does it feel to fumble the bag not only once but twice? You left first take. Okay, we understand. Stephen A. Smith, not always everyone's cup of tea, but you had the hottest ticket on this side of the Mississippi River, and you fumbled that bag. How could you do that? All because of ego? If you ever notice, if you ever notice with anything successful, it's never money that kills it. WCW, NWO, it's never money that kills it. It's always ego. And that's what happened. Now, I'm going to just be real. People always talk about Skip Bayless and what he says now. He's been saying crazy stuff for years. Like you said earlier, the Troy Aikman incident, when Deion Sanders had to go out there and check him on national television because of what he said. Can't say it here, but it was pretty much derogatory, especially for that time back in the 90s. It could have very well hurt Troy Aikman's career back then. People got to understand, back in the 90s, things aren't where it is now as far as progression is concerned, if you get what I'm trying to say. Something like that comes out now, people, shrug it off. Back then, that could have been a career killer. So the thing is, for you to let your ego get the best of you, not once, but twice, is kind of an indicator of how big your ego is. I mean, the thing is, and it just didn't, and the thing is, he didn't learn from his mistakes, because remember, him and Richard Sherman got into it on Undisputed earlier this year when Richard Sherman became the co-host. And he got into it with Keyshawn. How big? Yes. So how big do your ego have to be in order to keep alienating everybody? How big does your ego have to be that you keep alienating everybody who you work with? After a while, you got to look within and say, hey, man, I'm messing up. And let's just face it, Keyshawn, great personality, great charisma, but he's no Shannon Sharp. He's no Stephen A. Smith. Richard Sherman, same thing, but he's no Shannon Sharp. He's no Stephen A. You had the pleasure of working with the two hottest guys, arguably in sports history, since Stuart Scott. Happy birthday, by the way. You had the best opportunity to work with these two legendary icons, not only in sports, but in pop culture. And you let your ego destroy not one, but two shows. Because remember, and you left First Take, aka Cold Pizza, and then made an even better show in Undisputed. So after a while, your ego takes over and say, okay, I lose this guy. But you can't replace everybody. A lot of people are expendable, but not a lot of people are replaceable. There's a huge difference. And I don't think that Skip Bayless realized that. Now, do I hope that he finds another avenue? Yes, I do. But the thing is, are people going to pay attention to you? Because this is not like the old days when you could go back to beat writing and things of that nature. It's not like you can go back to the Chicago Sun or the Dallas Herald and things of that nature. You can have these huge platforms on YouTube require for people to listen to you, much like we listen to PSP and UBRF. So the thing is, yes, I believe with his expertise, he can start up something. He has the expertise and the knowledge in order to do so. But now that you've alienated a lot of your co-hosts, are people going to listen to you and feel safe with the information that you're putting out? Because you have a bad habit of being biased.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned Marcellus Wiley, who used to work on ESPN. and also worked on Fox Sports. This
Mhm.
is what he really said regarding Skip Bayless in terms of his impact. It's tough to respect fully what Skip did because he was taking shots at what he was doing. While he said on his YouTube channel, he was taking shots at what he was supposed to be covering. He literally was out there and he hijacked sports media worse than anybody else. And this is why I understand why people are dancing on his grave, because I even have resentment towards Skip in this way. While he continued, Bayless quote changed the whole complexion and discourse around sports, allowing those who know little about sports to feel validated in their criticisms. So now I can sit here in the stands with a big belly and a beer, talk trash about you, Wiley said, and it's valid. It's validated by somebody who's the biggest thing talking. And what were your thoughts about that? About what Marcellus Wiley said?
I think the thing is, all of the hot takes that he made, especially about LeBron, make no sense.
Do you
Just
remember the
acknowledge
one? Do you remember the one? I'm sorry, Champ. Do you
Go
remember the
ahead.
one in which First Take they asked Michael Jordan in his 50s could beat LeBron James in his 30s, and then Skip Bayless was like, he just might, beat him. And look, Skip Bayless, he is known for saying outrageous and controversial takes. And of course, we all know entertainment, it's about getting clicks, it's about doing that type of stuff. But to BRF's point, Skip did it to himself. And FS1 is also culpable as well, because back then you did a lot for Skip Bayless because he was a hot commodity at the time. And of course, when you acquire a hot commodity like a Skip Bayless, you're gonna give him a lot. You're gonna give him a ton of money. You're gonna do whatever you can to appease to them. And of course, Skip Bayless, you look at his contract back in 2021, he's making millions. What was it? 4 years, $32 million. So that's
Mhm.
like 8 million per year. Now he's still now him leaving undisputed. What's gonna happen next? Like I said, they got to take care of Colin Cowherd. They can't lose him. What's gonna happen with undisputed? Because now with Skip Bayless out of the picture, how are they going to handle? How are they going to handle with Keyshawn Johnson, Rachel Nichols, Michael Irvin now? How are they going to handle? The only best show on FS1 is First Things First with Nick Wright, Chris Broussard. That's about it. But clearly, the reason why they made this move is because business. Tolerance and production. When the production is high, so is tolerance, as Shannon Sharp has said. But when the moment production slips, tolerance is gone. And they no longer could tolerate anymore with Skip Bayless. And I just think for Skip, man, it's really unfortunate because he had a lot, with First Take, with Stephen A. Smith. And it was a great show back then. And he had even a better show, in my opinion, when he had Shannon on Undisputed.
Mhm.
But his ego definitely got in the way. To BRF's point, I did think Skip Bayless went too far, particularly at times when he talked about Brady and when he accused of Shannon Sharpe of being jealous. So it's really unfortunate how it is with Skip Bayless. Again, I don't wish bad. I don't wish ill will. I hope Skip Bayless lands on his feet, finds another opportunity, and I think it's probably going to have to be YouTube, like what we're doing right now. Because at this point, who is going to bring him on?
And who's going to listen to him? Like I said, once your credibility has been shot at a certain point, and credibility doesn't necessarily have to be who you have in these sports media offices or your sources and things like that. Once people will not listen to you anymore, then basically you become very much obsolete at a certain point. Because out of all three of us on this, now I think a sports savant will follow a Skip Bayless because they probably followed his work all the way back from SMU all the way up to Dallas and the Chicago Sun and things of that nature. Guys who know the history and are sports savants, they may follow him on the YouTube. But for the casual fans of certain demographics, I don't think they want to hear anything else you got to say. I mean, it's just a question. I mean, I don't think that show, even if he has a YouTube show, it's going to be a shadow of what Undisputed was, even in its darkest days. It's going to be a shadow of what it was. So the thing is this: you got to put your ego aside. You have to understand when you're getting fed, spoon-fed something, you have to understand where the food is coming from. And the thing is, hey, once that show took off, hey, you have to pick and choose your battles. And my thing is, the worst thing that you can do, the absolute worst thing that you can do, is try to embarrass someone, not just in a public setting, but on national television where you have millions of people that everybody sees it. You don't want to embarrass somebody one-on-one, so you tread lightly on the way you talk to them. You don't want to embarrass them in a private setting, but on a public setting, on a huge platform where millions of people are watching, you have to be careful, especially when you have such a great thing going.
You know, Champ, that's interesting. That's interesting that you bring that up. If you're doing this publicly, imagine what you're doing privately.
Yes. Imagine what you're doing privately. Yeah, that's a good point. So,
because if you feel that comfortable doing that publicly in front of a guy like Shannon Sharpe.
Yeah, and to your point, it was kind of like a Nas situation, you know, on one mic. I let this stuff slide for too many years, and now I'm going to check you where we stand because you've done this too many times. Because after a while, people get tired of you, you know, treading on their soul. And after a while, you keep going into that yard, that dog gonna bite you.
Mm-hmm.
And he might shake on you a little bit to the point where you might not walk out that yard. So the thing is, you have to watch your ego. And I think when people get too comfortable, they let their ego take over. Like I said, if you look at everything great that involved any group or any great setting, it always ended, not because of money. It always ended because of ego. I mean, you could talk about music groups from NWA to organizations like WCW to the downfall of many great men who were the head of organizations. It always ended because of ego more so than money.
Absolutely. Also, I listened to what Stephen A. Smith had to say on his pod. He was really sad with what happened regarding the news with Skip Bayless. He still looks at Skip Bayless as a brother, as a friend, has a lot of love for him, has appreciated Skip for everything that he's done for him in his career, even though, it's just really unfortunate. And I think it's a lesson for all of us to realize just how good we got it. Don't blow it by ego tripping.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead, Champ.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Hey, my dad always told me, man, don't bite the hand that feeds you. And just because it's coming from another hand doesn't mean, and just because it's coming from somewhere else, that don't mean it's not coming from the same hand. So, hey, you got to watch yourself, and especially when. Can you imagine the contracts that Shannon and Skip would have gotten had they continued? Can you imagine that?
With the ratings and just as hot as that show got, they could have made so much really good money together. But like Champ say, ego will break you. Ego will break you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Be humble, in the great words of K-Dot.
Yeah, definitely, man. Just realize how good you got it because there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. You're not promised tomorrow. But
exactly.
Hope Skip Bayless lands back on his feet.